What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we've got another deck profile for us all. This time we're looking at Lair of Darkness again. I know I looked at this fairly recently, but with the introduction of Blazing Vortex into the game, I actually think Lair of Darkness gets a pretty decent buff. So there's a couple of cards here that I've added, a couple things I've taken out, and I just want to show you my modern day list that I'm running currently, just because, you know, this is like the staple deck of the channel. A lot of you guys love this, and I love it too. It's one of my favorite decks of all time. I really hope this deck gets support fairly soon, or they make like a Lair of Darkness like redone structure deck like they did. I think they've been doing in the OCG for a couple of older structure decks. That'd be insane. But yeah, without further ado, let's just jump into it. I don't want to waste too much time with the intro here. Starting off with the basic Lair stuff. The level 3 Dark Fiend package. Obviously 3 Lilith, she's the best card in the deck. 3 Tour Guide, she gets you 2, the best card in the deck. And she also gets you to Skarm or Sangan, whichever other one you want. And notice here that I'm not playing a card that I played in my last build, which was Dark Resonator. Now, I'm a little bit torn on it, but I decided to leave it out for this list that I'm trying at the moment. The idea here is he's like the biggest brick in the deck. I mean, he's a bigger brick than the artifacts are. At least you have ways to like work with the artifacts, but not really him. I mean, unless you open him with ties, he really does nothing for your hand. So this increases consistency a little bit. We were at 44 cards before. We're now at 42. And yeah, everything else here is still great. Sangan getting you either your Tour Guide for follow-up or one of your hand traps for extra disruption. And then Skarm getting you either your Tour Guide or a Skarm for the following turn as well. So this package has still been really, really good. I can't complain. Also, keep in mind, by taking out the Dark Resonator, we actually have taken out that whole little Synchro package. But honestly, the Synchro package, it just doesn't come up. I mean, I tested with it. I did a million test hands, and like, I really just didn't draw it. I didn't draw Scythe plus exactly Tour Guide all that often, and all it would take is one Ash, one hand trap, and that play doesn't matter, right? So I don't know, it just seemed like you were just like high rolling it a lot, so I decided to cut it for more consistency. Next up, 3 Arima. Don't need to talk about this too much. I mean, he gets you Lair, or he's a pseudo normal summon. He tributes your opponent's stuff. 1700 meter, fine. He's good. The artifact stuff, still on 2 Scythe, 1 Moral Attack. These are both just still good. One thing that is kind of iffy for sure is that since Drytron's one of the best decks in the game, Scythe is definitely iffy because they do not need to go in the extra deck. I mean, like, it's nice. They definitely have extra utility, and it's good for them, but like, they can just straight up play without the extra deck. So definitely interesting there. Maybe I'd side a second Moral Attack for a matchup like that, but or maybe I'd look at siding out the whole package. I'd have to really think about it, but that's definitely something to make note of. But still, versus everything else, that package is insane. Then for the hand trap, still on 2 Ash and 2 Bell. The other card I have dropped is the Ogre. And pretty much the basic explanation for that is the reason we were playing the Ogre in the first place was just because we were special summoning it off of Halki Fibrax for that extra disruption when we did the Tour Guide Scythe play. But because we took out the Dark Resonator, we don't have a tuner for that play anyway. So we would just be playing an Ogre to play an Ogre. There's no actual like extra benefit there. So I decided to just play these 2. Obviously, you side more hand traps, you side more going second stuff. Like pretty much like what you would do. What I would advise is just like you play this deck going first, but you just kind of side to like essentially just board in to make this deck like a good going second Lair of Darkness build. Essentially, you just side like a package of those cards, Pankratops and alphas and stuff like that. Just those good going second cards. Maybe Kaijus if you want. That's up to you. And go to town. But yeah, that is it for all the monsters. 18 monsters down from 20 before. So there's where our 2 cards got shaved off. Moving on from there, we've got 3 Lair of Darkness. Another card I definitely took out of the list was Terraforming. Jesus, oh my god, brain fart, holy crap. Okay, so that's actually where the other card came from, because I didn't just take out Ogre, I took out Ogre and put in the second Bell. So we kind of did a swap there, but here is where we took out the other card, is by taking out Terraforming. At the end of the day, when you play Terraforming and there's no other target in your deck, I don't play like Mystic Mine or anything like that. So LAIR is the only target for Terraforming, and we have Arima, and we have draw cards that are really good. So at the end of the day, I just like got down to it and I looked at it and I was like, oh man, you don't need those hard copies, because I'm just gonna have hands if I play too many copies where I just see 3 Lair of Darkness and my hand can't play because that's my hand, and the 2 of the cards are just completely redundant. So yeah, that's the idea there. Then the other spells that are pretty standard at this point. 3 Ties of the Brethren. If this card resolves going first, it's insane. You just get so much advantage. It's like hard to lose those duels. 3 copies of Super Polymerization. You have to play it. This is, other than I guess Zombies, the best Super Poly deck in the game. And the last spell is a Proxy. I'm going to say this right now. I'm sorry, because you got Extravagance, and Extravagance is probably expensive when you got it. Prosperity is better than Extravagance, specifically in this deck, and a lot of decks also. So this is supposed to be Pot of Prosperity, the new card out of Blazing Vortex. If you don't know what the card does, pretty basically, I'll explain it real quick. You get to choose 3 or 6 cards to banish from your extra deck face down. Then, based off the number you banished, you get to essentially just like Pot of Duality, like look at that many cards from the top of your deck, and then add one of those cards to your hand. So if you decided to banish 3, you can look at the top 3 and pick one. If you decide to banish 6, you get to look at the top 6 and pick one. The reason that's so good in this deck is it gives you a targeted, it's almost like a search. It's almost like that level. It's almost on the level of like search any card in your deck. Obviously there's still some RNG to it because you're never guaranteed, but this deck plays so many haymakers, right? Getting to Lilith is one of the problems with the deck, is sometimes you can't find Lilith. Well, this gives you a great chance of finding either Tour Guide or Lilith, or if you already had one of the level 3s in hand, giving you a great chance to find Ties of the Brethren. That's another thing that's awesome. And it helps you find stuff like Super Poly, which is why, like, if you're playing somebody and you're going second, this cannot resolve. Even if it's not going to resolve, it baits a negate at the very least, because they can't let this resolve, because if you find Super Poly, you can just like beat decks on the spot, right? Some decks just lose to Super Poly. We saw that with Dragon Link one format ago, right? So there's so many things that you can find. You can find your Sanctums, you can find LAIR itself. That's another reason, is that this card allows you to find LAIR way easier than Pot of Extravagance doing the random draws. Now, the +1 was nice, I'm not going to lie to you, but there were other things, like we were drawing stuff like extra normal summons. Just do more of the level 3s, which you only really need 1 or 2 in your hand ever, really only 1, or you were drawing stuff like the artifacts. Those aren't good. You literally can never draw artifacts off of this card. That's another great thing. So I just think overall this card is too good not to play in the deck. So yeah, play it if you can. You know, I know it's going to be expensive. I'm sorry about that, but you know, a lot of our formats are online anyway, so you can at least, you know, play on Dueling Book with it. But I highly recommend playing Prosperity over Extravagance. That is it for the spells, though. You know, the standard 12, essentially same thing, except you just swap Prosperity for Extravagance. For the trap lineup, 3 Sanctum, 3 Punishment, 3 Ice Dragon's Prison. I know I hate having like a proxy here for this because it is out, but it's so expensive, and I know it's hard for me to tell you get Prosperity, but then I don't even have Ice Dragon's Prison. But god damn it, I'm just so blown that I like could have gotten it when it was like $8 and I didn't, because I was like, oh, it'll just be like Get Out. Like Get Out's like $3 now or whatever it is now. It's so cheap. It'll eventually go down. It's a trap card. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! And then no, $40. Crazy. I'm sorry. There's definitely other things you can try and play. I wouldn't play like Dynamiscus. This deck doesn't really want to discard, so the discard's kind of awful. But you could play stuff like Lost Wind. You could even look at stuff like Torrential Tribute or Needle Sealing. I mean, I don't love wiping my own stuff, but a lot of times you don't have a lot of stuff. So, you know, doing that wipe is fine, because you could like activate the card and then like chain Lilith to get you something like your Back to the Front, and then from there, you just would revive Lilith. So you wipe their board, but you just get Lilith back, which is fine. But yeah, there's a bunch of other options, so don't be afraid to explore if you're on a more budget variant. So that's fine. But then back to front, obviously, I think you need that recursion play. It's really important. And then the one trap trick. I still am on one trap trick, not recommending more than one. I know some people like more than one because, you know, once you've hit the trap trick on the first one, you still might need to hit something later on. But I'd rather not like water my deck down with like extra trap tricks. At most, I would play 2. I would never play 3 anymore in this deck. I used to love 3, but I've just learned that like you don't want to draw it with like 2 or 3 traps, because then it just makes you like awkward, especially if they have any kind of back row removal to start their turn or something like that. It makes it really, really tough. But yep, that is it for the main. From 44 down to 42, I think the deck's consistency has shot through the roof. Another thing I didn't really mention with Prod of Prosperity that I want to hit on real quick, though, is with Ties of the Brethren, right? Because Ties of the Brethren is such a strong card, but sometimes it felt like with Extravagance, it wasn't consistent enough. Like, sometimes it felt like you would... Okay, so let me break it down this way. Opening a monster without ties is fine. It's not that big of a deal. But opening ties without a monster is horrible. And so you might say, John, you dropped the monster count by 1. Right, but we also replaced that by dropping the deck count from 44 to 42, so slightly, smaller deck count, so you're going to see these cards a little more often. And we have Prosperity instead of Extravagance, which is going to give us a chance to look 6 cards deep and target and look for like a targeted search or targeted draw one, essentially. There, because if we had ties, you'd literally look 6 cards deep to find one of 8 monsters. Like, the chances on that are so high. Like, I'm pretty sure the chances are above 80% for that. So yeah, it just makes ties way more consistent in the deck, and yeah, that's just huge. All right, obviously tokens, bleep, bloop, nothing crazy. And then we get to the extra deck. So the extra deck has definitely changed because we don't have to play crazy ratios for like for Extravagance now, because at least you get to target the cards you want to banish, so you just banish the least important stuff. But yeah. All right, for the Super Poly, obviously the 2 Trifia Veritum, the 2 Starving Venoms, and the 1 Mud Dragon. I did drop a Mud Dragon. I'm not banishing it off of my Disparity. If I'm blind disparitying and it's not like, oh, like I know they have a deck that could be Mud Dragoned. But if it's like Dogmatica Invoked or Dogmatica Eldritch or Invoked Eldritch, I'm keeping this in because you can hit like a Golden Lord or one of their trap monsters plus like a Makaba or one of their Dogmatica cards, so that's actually pretty good. And then yeah, these are just great because when layers up, you can literally hit any deck in the game with Super Poly, which is so broken. 3 Intis, we're playing 3 Dogmatica Punishment, so yeah, 3 Intis, just in case we happen to go, like, need the 3rd. Although that is possibly potential drop is one of those if you want. I am still playing 1 Chimera Rafflesia just because we're playing Super Poly. So sometimes it may not be worth to pop 2 cards. It may just be more worth to pop 1 monster and then use Chimera Rafflesia to get us to Super Poly on our next standby, because it's just going to be insane. Like it is always. Then for a couple Link 1s, 1 Link Spider, 1 Almirage. So with certain stuff in the extra deck, Link Spider is very nice to help us get into stuff from the tokens. So we could take a token into this, and that could help us get into either the Verte or get into like Phoenix for 2 different names, or beat Cop from the Underworld. I know this isn't a dark, but under LAIR it'd be a dark, and then like another token would be also dark, but different names, which the card requires. And then Almirage is just there if like you draw a hand where you just draw Sangan or Skarm, and you don't want to leave it to your opponent to like shuffle them, bounce them, banish them, whatever. You want to guarantee you get their searches, so you still have a body on board, but still guarantee like the follow up off Skarm or Sangan. So that's kind of nice there. And then for the Link 2s, 1 Apprentice, 1 Beat Cop, 1 Verte, and 1 Phoenix. Just kind of utility all around. Phoenix popping back row. He's not great in the deck, I'll be honest, but like sometimes with like a couple tokens, you build up a couple cards. Just like taking a specific card off the field can be huge. So that can come up. And it's still a Fiend, so there's like, I don't know, playing under certain floodgates like Rivalry can be nice, I guess. Whatever. Verte comes up a little more than that, though, because you take any 2 effect monsters, just send a super poly and then just like rip the whole board off if LAIR's up, and then summon a Trifio Veritum, which is really good. Beat Cop, she's the only generic like link card in the entire game that allows you to trigger or do like the LAIR tribute an opponent's monster thing. So she's really cool. If you can just make her, you can tribute an opponent's monster to protect herself or your LAIR itself. And then We Witch, she buffs everything by 500, allows you to OTK sometimes when otherwise you couldn't, and she is best girl in the deck other than Lilith. She's the best extra deck girl, we'll say that there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my updated Lair of Darkness profile. It's not too crazy different, but I do think there are some pretty substantial changes, especially with the extra deck, but also some things with the main, cutting some things out that just felt kind of cheeky and unnecessary. I mean, this is just me trying to like essentially trim the fat, right? I think like Extravagance is kind of the fat of the deck, right? I think the Prosperity is just a more efficient way of doing what Extravagance wants to do. Same thing by taking out like the Synchro package. I just think that was kind of just like extra stuff that's kind of watering down the deck a little bit. So we like swap the Ogre out for a more efficient hand trap. We take out the Dark Resonator, which is just kind of watering down the deck a little bit for like very minimal gain, it felt like. One thing I will say though is sometimes you might have duels where you want to resolve a second Ties of the Brethren, and as long as you didn't start with Tour Guide, you like won't be able to resolve Ties of the Brethren again, like a second time in a duel, right? Because think about it this way, right? If you start with like Skarm, and you just like, or Sangan, it doesn't even matter, anything but Tour Guide. Start with Sangan, and you will special Skarm and Lilith, right? You're never special summoning Tour Guide off of that. Well, now Sangan and Tour Guide and Skarm, I'm sorry, Sangan and Skarm are out of the deck, which means now the only 2 level 3 Dark Fiends left in your deck will be more Liliths and more Tour Guides. So you literally can't resolve another Tied by the Brethren. Ties of the Brethren. Jesus, why can I not talk in this video? So that's definitely something I would worry about a little bit, although to be honest, usually just resolving 1 Ties is enough to win straight up. Also, you could just put a token on the field, one of the Lair of Darkness tokens, and that could be a level 3 Dark Fiend, and then you could summon a Lilith and a Tour Guide off of it. So it's not completely dead. There are just other ways. That's definitely one thing I considered if I was like, man, I wish there was just one other one. I'm not playing Malice. Malice is awful. Please don't play Malice, guys, if you're trying to play this deck at like its competitive peak. The card's just not good. Unless like certain things change, but I still stand by. I'd love to see a like retrained structure deck like they've been doing in the OCG for Lair of Darkness, or if they just want to throw out another couple cards. I literally think there's like the deck needs 2 cards and the deck can be like a legit like amazing deck. I just think the only thing it needs is just an easier way to get access to its engine. I mean, that's it. That's basically it. Is right now we have like Ties and Lilith. And technically Tour Guide gets to Lilith, but that way doesn't get you to traps because Lilith can't resolve when she's summoned off Tour Guide. So, right, you have to like, there's just like some weird things with that. But overall, it's a crazy, crazy deck. I highly recommend it if you haven't yet for some ungodly reason. But I'm gonna end it off there, guys. You guys know the drill, though. Throw comments in the comment section down below. Jeez. Let me know any suggestions you have for the build. Anything you would change for yours, anything that you're worried about or whatever. Obviously, you can build a more budget version. I know Prosperity is going to be crazy. Ice Dragon's Prison is kind of crazy and other stuff. But I'm trying to find out like how good I can make this deck, so because I love it so much. But like I said, leave your comments down below. I'm just one man trying to build these decks on my own. And I guess subscribe if you haven't. If you made it this far, man, subscribe, because I just got more deck profiles like this one coming. I love you guys. Thank you so much for the support. Peace.